Welcome to another edition of We Need to Talk About Movies, brought to you by banterflix.com. And now, here's your host, Jim McLean.
Hello. Yes, I am indeed your host, Jim McLean, the editor-in-chief of the Banterflix movie review website. Welcome to the latest episode of We Need to Talk About Movies. If this is your first time checking out this podcast, then welcome to the madness. The title's pretty self-explanatory. Each week we talk about a specific movie. It might be a new release, it might be a cult classic, it might be a film that you've never heard of before. But we gather together some contributors and we chat about the film. And sometimes we get a little bit spoilerific. I think that's definitely the case with the film we're talking about this evening. But we try to have a bit of fun in the process and hopefully you enjoy it too. Now, this week is a bit of a special recording because this is an episode that is taking part in the Dark Hedges International Film Festival, a horror film festival that we are programming that is taking place virtually here in Belfast from the 24th to 31st of October. And I thought that since it's a horror festival and since Halloween is nearly upon us, I thought we'd talk about a horror movie. And I thought we'd talk about a new horror movie, one that's just had its world premiere at the London Film Festival, and that is Rose, a Love Story, directed by Jennifer Sheridan. And on this episode, I'm going to be joined by Claire McCullough, who's from the Ormeau Community Cinema, and local blogger Neil Sedgewick. We're going to be talking to them shortly. But just before we get to that, I got a chance to speak to two of the producers of Rose, a Love Story, Sara Huxley and Kelley. And before we get into that interview, let's have a look at the film's trailer.
You're a good man. I'll love you forever.
Why being weird?
I want you to take me out.
And what was the food like?
Like really fancy fruit. Come on.
What?
Eat, please. You know, like lychee.
Yeah, okay, fair. Fancy fruit. What else?
Grilled octopus.
And what was the weather like?
So warm that you could sit outside and you could smell all the food cooking on the grill and smell the salt water coming from the sea. There's just no way that I'm going to leave you on your own for 2 days. I'm sorry.
Is, I want you to.
What if something happens to you?
It wouldn't be your fault.
Rose?
Help me!
I found someone. It's a girl.
Oh my God.
We need to get rid of her.
Why do you live like this? The windows, the lights, the traps. Rose, why you go outside?
So that's a clip of Rose, a Love Story, and I'm joined now by two of the film's producers, Sara Huxley and Kelley. Hello to you both, ladies. It is the world premiere of the film, and I'll start with yourself, April. Tell our viewers and our listeners as much as they need to know about Rose, a Love Story, going in to watch it.
It's always, it's tricky not to make a silly answer there. So you are about to see a gothic love story. You're about to get really invested in this couple who are battling an illness between them, Rose with this illness, and it has a vampire twist.
There we go. That's all good. I thought we would get through this without mentioning the word vampire, because I know that's a thing that there is in the film. I don't think, having watched it yesterday, there's not an outright mention to the word vampire. Feel free to correct me, ladies.
No, there isn't. But we've been trying to keep it under wraps since we wrapped. and it's just how it's been described, and all of the reviews are coming out, which is it's good. It's good that they are acknowledging that, because there hasn't been any vampire type stories, and it's really hard to beat Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so we're quite up against it. But that nuance of the vampire actually represents so many other elements to it. It doesn't mean just vampire. We saw in one of the reviews that it was parallel to dealing with a loved one with a terminal illness, and how you tackle that in a relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's kind of one of the big things I picked up from watching it yesterday on the player. Sarah, can I ask yourself, because this is your company, Mini Productions, if I'm correct, how did you guys get involved with this, and how did this end up being the first feature that you had both produced? And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, you're right. Yeah, so April and I have run Mini Productions for a good few years now together. April founded the company in 2012, but we sort of came together and started working on short films actually in 2014 and 15. We love a short film, Jim. That's how all good ideas start. And it was really how we started as young producers, to test our skills and learn how to operate, and also test out ideas and work with new filmmakers and really exciting writers and directors and talent. And the short films just basically grew over the past few years, and we started to work with bigger and bigger talent, better and better scripts, more exciting things were happening. And we met Jen quite a few years ago at Aesthetic Film Festival. One of our short films, one of our first ever short films was there, a dear short film of ours called Tea for Two, and she was there with one of her shorts, and we just hit it off and stayed friends with her basically for quite a few years. And then we actually shot a very short horror with her for a bit of fun. And then her agent, Rob, part of the artist partnership and the development partnership, she put us in front of him and said, I really would love these producers on this, when they were kind of a little bit further along the project. They had Matt, they rep Matt as a writer, and they had Matt and Sophie on board, and Jen, and we were, I guess, the final piece of the puzzle. And it was just a really great team, basically, and we all hit it off. And that was it. I mean, I think the script landed on our desk in September, October. Well, no, we got the green light September, October. It was the beginning of that summer that we had first been chatting about it. And it all became real in September, October. And we just got back from LA to shoot another short, because apparently that's what we do. Mad things. And we just had a few months to put it all together. And the rest is history.
If I could ask, and this is a question I often ask directors, how they make that jump from shorts to features, how they find that. I'm interested from yourselves from a producing point of view. Did you find much of a difference for yourselves? Was it a case of, I know I always talk to directors, it's more about, working on a short helps you with time management and etc. Things like that, and how you have to know what you have to get shot through a daily process. From a producing point of view, give me an insight about that jump from shorts to feature.
Want to kick it off, Sara?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the practical element of the financing structure is very different. You run the accounts differently. You can contract people differently. You run payrolls differently. You're normally using the tax credit. So there's a whole load of stuff like that is a big jump for producers, and you have to understand it and get your head around it, or have another producer who does. And we learned so much in that process. So, because you're ultimately really making a product in a feature film that you can sell. And whereas shorts, a lot of the time, it's like you might not make any money from them, and it's about the festivals and the accolades. There is a difference in the way that features are packaged, and certainly in the distribution side. And it's got a different journey. But we had worked on bigger stuff, April and I. We really worked hard to freelance on much bigger shows with much bigger budgets, and push our own shorts to bigger budgets and be more and more challenging, and shooting all different mediums and genres, so that we were so ready for a feature film. the nice way of saying it is it's just like a short film but longer, but it does have its challenges even from the scripting stage.
I'd also add that, I mean, from the get-go, this was our goal, including LFF. We didn't think it would happen, especially on our debut feature. But I think Sara might agree. We really pride ourselves on the way we produce short films. We really do think about the entire product, even though you're not going to make any money, even from how you present that and how you find an audience, because directors and writers are very rightly so trying to get every penny on the screen, whereas actually you need a few pennies for people to actually be able to see the film, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to elevate your own career, and then even through there, like, short films have become they've got a lot of worth now, and we now have 5 of our short films on Amazon Prime, and that's not because we want to make our money. Well, I mean, we would like to make our money back, but
but that's never going to happen, Jim.
That's not the reason. That's not the reason. It's for the art and the integrity. I know this. Don't worry. I understand this. It's okay.
But to have it on a platform like that, that's it's huge, I think.
I think it was yourself, Sarah, you mentioned they're kind of like, ultimately you have to sell this product. How are you feeling right now? We're coming through an environment that's changing, week by week. We look at kind of what's happening to the traditional cinematic distribution route. I know, April, you've mentioned there Amazon Prime. What way does that kind of now? Because I was reading this finished at about March, and I'm assuming that includes post and things like that. You didn't finish filming in March. That would just be too ironic when you watch this film, because you look at Sam and Rose, they are the self-distancing, social distancing king and queens. I think there's definitely an irony watching it there. But for you guys, what's your kind of thoughts on the future right now with this film? Like, where do we go with Rose, A Love Story beyond London Film Festival? Have you that planned out? Do you kind of know? Is there things that you just can't tell me right now? But what way is that market from your perspective changing in this, I hate to bring up COVID, but the kind of COVID world that we're currently living in?
It's just a big elephant in the room, isn't it? It's like, the positive side of you goes, well, people will always still want experiences. And I think cinema has become really exciting in that, there's different ways to experience film now. There's interactive cinema, there's cinemas that make it more of an experience. So hopefully, even if that slither of cinema survives, there'll be something, because people do crave like human interaction or like leaving their front door. But the VOD platforms are so powerful, and it does make your film be able to be viewed worldwide. So it's the landscape of film is ever evolving, and I think our hope is just to get it seen by as many people as possible. But ride off the back of this festival to get it out there. And luckily, we've had quite a few people reaching out and excited by the film, and that's what really matters to us.
Yeah, we're in a really good place. Like, we're just holding out for the moment. I think what you've got now is sales agent and distributors really in need of that new content, but potentially not having a huge amount of money that they might have had to buy it. I think we're taking it steady. So we've actually been very surprised about the amount of people having interest in this. And I think what will be key is not to rush it for a Halloween release, but potentially maybe build around an anti-Valentine's Day release. No, but we're very fortunate as one of the very few production companies that has a completed product out of COVID. Of COVID. Not even
COVID, but ready in time.
Yeah.
Pandemic.
I think everybody's just lost track. Look, I know we are pushed for time, but there is 2 questions I wanted to ask, and particularly wanted to ask you, April, because I want to talk about kind of the fact that the film's getting its world premiere at the London Film Festival. You mentioned just as we started to record, you have a personal connection with the London Film Festival. You have a history with the festival. So kind of to be getting the platform and the film's world premiere here, what does that mean for you? And what does that mean from Mini Productions' point of view to have that platform as a showcase for the film?
So I can't cry. It's the BFI. You enter this industry, and all you know is the BFI. That's the pinnacle of British cinema, and similar to what Sara was just saying, we really went and freelanced at as many places as possible, and that should include somewhere like the BFI, which is a distributor and has this incredible festival. So I started off, I did 2 years as part of their social media team, which is so fascinating, and which is why I'm so interested in the way that, whether it's a short film or a feature film, or when we do branded content, how you formulate that social media plan. And then I did another 2 years producing their red carpet and interviews, which again is fascinating, because you see how hard the press team pull everything together and schedule it. They have been an incredible support. Last year I was part of the BFI Flair mentorship. They've screened a couple of our films in Flair, and it's been a really wonderful journey, and one that we hope we can continue with them.
Yourself, Sara? Anything you want to add, or?
Just over the moon, really. It's like one of those things where you follow all the films that come out every year. You try and watch any film you can. You hear about it when they get reviews. You then go to the cinema. It's just like, it really makes the hard work and fear of people dying in snow off the side of a mountain worth it.
That is true. My last question, because I know we are in a junket and you have other interviews to do beyond this. I also program a film festival, a horror film festival, the Dark Hedges here in Belfast. And one of the things I'm interested in is women making horror. And that idea, is that something that you came into this project and in your own company? Was that something that was conscious to yourself? And kind of, we always hear that, I think it's, the figure might be about 80% of first-time female filmmakers, they don't get the opportunity to make a second feature. Was that something that was in your head when you, not only this feature, but your own shorts, as creating, a benchmark for filmmakers to jump onto, to be able to showcase their work?
We've always been excited by what short films can do leading into features, and testing out ideas, but also giving opportunity to filmmakers, and particularly female filmmakers. For us, making a female-led horror with women right at the helm is just such an exciting prospect, and I think it gives women a chance to give the female protagonists and characters in their films real like depth and complex characters, rather than always being this victim, that it has been previously in traditional horror films. So it's just really exciting for us to make horror. We love it. It's highly creative. Stunts, blood, scares, like script, all of it's just a lot of fun.
You are preaching to the converted, Sara.
Love
you
it.
definitely know that here. But another thing I do want to mention, you also have a female DOP, and I think the cinematography in this is absolutely outstanding. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I have to say, but just kind of, I know I jumped in there, April, before
She nailed it, Martina. Yeah. She was fantastic.
We've worked with her a few times. Very talented. All I was going to add is that I can't find a good enough way to articulate this at the moment, but we always prioritize making sure we're actively looking for diversity, whether that's gender, sexuality, disability. But at the same time, it also doesn't come into our mind because we just do it. So it's very strange. And I think because of how Sara and I started, and because of the landscape of where we started, and now living through the Me Too movement, it starts with us, as producers. It starts with us choosing the right story straight off the bat, before we even get people attached to it. It's making sure we're choosing a story which hasn't been told before, underrepresented voices. Are we going to be able to teach someone a different perspective with this? And then it trickles down from there.
Fantastic. Look, I would love to be able to talk to you a lot longer than this, But as I said, I know that this is a junket here at the London Film Festival, so I shall have to leave it here. So thank you very much, April. Thank you very much, Sarah. And good luck with Rose, A Love Story.
Yeah, good luck with your festival as well, Jim. Keep going. It's great.
I'm going to need it, but say no more about that. But thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
So that's my interview with Sara Huxley and April Kelley, the producers of Rose, A Love Story. And we're now going to chat about the film, share our thoughts. And I'm joined by Claire McCullough from the Ormeau Community Cinema. Hello to you, Claire.
Hello.
The last time we had, I can't remember, I think we had you on just a general chat about cinemas reopening, I think, if I'm right, Claire.
That was back in July, wasn't it?
It feels like a lifetime ago. You know, cinemas were reopening and now we're going into circuit breakers. You know, have you been to the cinema, Claire? Have you got a chance during that time to get back to the cinema?
No, I'm really bad. I actually didn't get a chance at all, and I'm kicking myself completely. And I feel really bad about it, and I don't really want to talk about it that much because I'm guilty, very guilty.
No one's gonna judge you. Shame.
Yeah, shame on me.
No one's gonna judge. I genuinely thought from that last recording, Claire, that we had left you. That literally, if cinemas had reopened the next day, you would have charged in and got your ticket, but clearly not. Clearly not.
Yeah, it should have happened. I think I was waiting for. Basically, I said to myself I was going to wait till Halloween, whenever like everything was. All the scary movies, all the thrillers and stuff were coming out. And then I got really excited about James Bond as well. And then that got put back. And just, yeah, no excuses. No excuses at all. No.
Okay, we're not going to judge you, Claire. I'm not going to judge you. I don't know about my other guest. That is a local blogger, Neil Sedgewick. So hello to you, Neil. Neil, we haven't had you on, I think, since Parasite, I think was the last time.
Yeah.
That feels like a lifetime ago, Neil. We were actually able to physically meet in a room and chat about Parasite, aka Parasite. The proposed Northern Irish remake of Parasite, it hasn't gone away. It's a bit like Jerry Adams. It hasn't gone away. It will come back at some point. We just, need to get the funds to do it. But, I was talking to Claire there about cinemas and being back to cinema. Have you been back to cinemas yet, Neil? And as a parent, have you had the kids to cinema?
No, the kids haven't been actually, but I have been. I went to see Tenet, and then we had the rather sad experience of the Bill and Ted.
Oh yeah,
Bill and Ted Face the Music that evening as a press show. But that's been it. That's kind of not really been myself much. To be honest, there hasn't been much that has drawn me towards the cinema, Tenet aside. And the way the world is now, there's just so much opportunity to see things other ways that I've kind of taken a bit of an advantage of that, I suppose. I do have a wee itch that I need to go to KFT, and I really kind of need to scratch that because I haven't been there in so long. But yeah, I've kind of stayed in a wee bit and used things like the BFI player, and all the usual online channels. I got a movie subscription. Movie. Did I say movie or movie?
Mr. Sedgewick, you have went full cinematic hipster, my friend. I've got movie, BFI player. I'm just going to sit and enjoy it with my chai latte and chill out, or maybe my homebrew beer.
Really into Belgian comedy now.
Yeah,
is movie the one that is movie the one that like sends you out DVDs each month, or what's the name of that one? Was it like Love Film or something, or?
It was Love Film back.
That was Love Film.
Yeah.
That was like back in the 90s, Claire. Remember DVDs and VHS? That was a long time ago. Yeah. How long have you been in isolation? Have you went like Tenet? Have you inversed time and went back to a time when you can actually get your hands on physical media? Come on, like you know, get with the time.
It's like yeah.
That's okay. That's all right. That's okay. But you know, Neil, I'd forgotten about this because I know you and I went to see the press screen. It wasn't like you and I on our own. There was other people there. Went to see Bill and Ted Face the Music, and I came out of it quite grumpy. And I know we've done a podcast where we talked about this, and I was quite grumpy about Bill and Ted Face the Music. But Claire, Neil was very, very grumpy. I think the exact term that I remember being muttered by Mr. Sedgewick as he came out with his Cine Punked branded face mask firmly on, because Neil is a responsible adult. I think the term was, "That's going to save cinema." Huh. No, and then just marched on. You were not a happy bunny that night.
No, I don't think I've ever seen anything that has disappointed me so much in so long. I really did not enjoy any of it, and I had fears about the whole Bill and Ted. Look, here's the thing on the Bill and Ted thing, right? When fans really want something, there are times when I feel like the stars and the studios need to step in and go, guys, it's not a good idea. And I felt like everybody involved with Bill and Ted Face the Music had a real love for it and really wanted to make this really, really great film for the fans and for everybody. And I just came away thinking it was an absolute stinker. From 5 minutes in, I was like, nope, we're done here.
So you were right. You were right by the time they started to play bagpipes, is what you're saying.
I was
Spoiler.
done. I was done by minute 5.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah, massive spoiler. They tried to play bagpipes.
I wasn't as angry
I
as
just
you.
didn't really enjoy any of it.
I wasn't as angry as you, but I didn't enjoy it. I have to admit that. And I think I said on the podcast when we did our chat about it, was that because it has surprised me, it's got a lot of good reviews and a lot of positive reviews by a lot of critics, Mark Kermode and Simon Brew, that I really respect. And I was surprised by that, but everything they talk about it, I agree with and can't deny that it's a film made with the best of intentions, and it's got, so many multifaceted levels of representation. And, we have an androgynous character front and center, and there's no fuss about it, and it's all great. But as an actual piece of film, it's a mess. As an actual, in terms of its editing and its storyline and its narrative, it is, as Neil said, I think the technical term is stinker. There's no denying that. But, you were grumpy about that. But what about Tenet? We haven't heard your thoughts on Tenet.
Well, I've seen it once. So everybody's line with Tenet is, I need to go and see it again. And I think that probably holds for me a wee bit too. But I did really enjoy it. And there were moments where I thought, I know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
I know where this is going. And then things happen in the gap and you go, oh no, that can't happen now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out they happen, which is a really rubbish review. But it's really hard. It's a really hard film to talk about without spoiling or giving too much away, even though you don't fully understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There is an assumption with Tenet and with a lot of Christopher Nolan films that you as the audience are expected to catch up and to keep up with what's going on. And when I went to see Inception, and the scary thing about Inception is it's
10 years
plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And at the end of Inception, no spoilers, but when the top is spinning and it cuts to black, I was in the cinema and a very Belfast voice in the row behind me went, "What the was that about?" I would have loved to have seen Tenet with that guy. I would have loved to have taken him out tonight to see Tenet. Because if you feel like Inception was a hard thing to tag along with, Tenet's like a level up from that. And there's good points to that, but there's also bad points to that because it'll turn people off very easily. But equally, for those who love that type of thing, it'll really give you that wee bit of cinematic buzz. And it was lovely. It was lovely to go and see it. It's kind of my return to cinema, big screen, all the visuals of it, highly impressive. But definitely to get a full appreciation of what's going on, it's going to take another watch or maybe more.
I would agree with you because I was quite cold on it first time round, and I went with my cousin to see it. Well, actually, I had to go 3 times because the second time I walked out halfway through because, as we said in this podcast a couple of times, cinema might be back, but so too are the cinema wankers. They're sadly back, and you know, and clearly the time it's been away, the 6 months or whatever it was that cinemas were closed, you know, they've learned to kind of that cinema and the cinema environment is just your living room and you can talk and be on the phone and take pictures. And I walked out, and I'm sorry to mention the Odeon, that's where I was, but we have a good relationship with the Odeon and some of the staff there and the management, but it was terrible. And I then came back on an early morning. I was off. There was me and one other person in the cinema, the way it should be. Okay, I do love shoulder to shoulder watching stuff when it's all a good audience, but just there's nothing better. Do like a Sunday morning, you go to the cinema, there's maybe you and 4 other people, and it's nice and quiet, and you enjoy it, and it's that good that even as you come out, those 4 people or other 4 people, one of them maybe stops. What do you think? And you have a wee chat. That's what I love. And the technically the third time round of watching it, I actually really, really like it. I like it a lot more, but the first time out of it, I came out of it really cold. And just kind of, I know you don't want to talk about it, Claire, but Tenet wasn't enough to tempt you back at all. Like, are you not a Nolan fan, or was just kind of...
No. I actually, I really like Nolan. I was really tempted by Tenet, and I was kind of thinking about it, and then I went on Twitter, and everyone was talking about just what, like, some people were like, oh, it's the best film ever, it was really good, and then other people were like, what was that? And then people were like, if you say that you understood what happened in Tenet the first time watching it, then you're lying. And I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can watch a film like that.
I didn't have that issue. Like, Neil, did you have that? I mean, I understood it. I came out of it, I was quite perplexed by that in terms of certain things that were going on. I don't want to be spoilerific. I never had an issue with understanding the plot. My issue with the film was it didn't feel symmetric to me in terms of, I know it's not time travel, and Chris Nolan will come and hit me over the head if I mention that Tenet is a time travel film. It's time inversion. But watching it for, as I say, technically the third time, there's actually a lovely bit of symmetry to it that I did not pick up on. And the thing about it is, it's truthfully, it's impossible, and I'm not going to be spoilerific. It's impossible to pick up on the symmetry of it first time watching it, but when you watch it the second time, it's just a nice little chubby moment. You're like, oh, okay, I get this now. I see that it's much more symmetric and resolves itself much more thoroughly than what I thought it did. But I never at any point didn't have an issue with understanding it. I didn't have an issue too much with, I know some people had issues about hearing things. I think that's just a case that you just have to pay attention. You can't be kind of sitting on your phone or kind of looking around. Just pay attention to the bloody thing when it's on the screen. Did you? I mean, that was kind of a rambly question, Neil. But did you understand it, Neil? I wasn't confused, but were you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I understood. I didn't really have any issues at the time. I did have a moment. I will confess that I did have to have a toilet break. So that's not ideal in a film like that. And I thought, right, okay, it's an action sequence. Nothing major will happen here. And I was gone for 2 or 3 minutes, and I did come back in and kind of go, oh, we've jumped significantly here. And it took me a wee while to catch up, but that was probably the only thing. I also didn't have the sound issue.
No, didn't have sound issues at all.
My local Omniplex down the road from me, and I would tell you it was perfect. I got everything, so I don't quite know where that line comes from, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I'll definitely I have seen theories out there. Again, Twitter's not the ideal place because you never know what to trust. But I have seen theories out there that if you watch it from the end backwards, because the whole thing kind of is symmetric and a bit of a palindrome, you can do the same film.
I know what you mean.
In reverse order.
I've watched it. I've watched it a couple of times. I wouldn't.
There's a dialogue problem there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but it's just there's a thing that I noticed when I watched it. I'm going to say the second time round that you would be completely oblivious to. You wouldn't understand why it's there, why the camera looks at something the first time round. It's only when you've watched the film the second time, and it doesn't affect your understanding of it. It doesn't affect, because I know we've had a constant discussion on this podcast. If you watch a film and you don't understand it, has it failed? We talk about films like Hereditary. I know we're going to be talking about a horror film tonight with Rose, A Love Story. It's a very different type of film to Hereditary.
Am I okay?
Oh, yeah.
You're okay. Jim's gone.
All right.
Oh, it's okay.
You had a bit of a freeze. You fell down the palindrome there.
That's okay. You inverted time. You're back with Love Film. That's what it is. You're taking your DVDs back. But no, I as I say, it's just there's a thing at the start of Tenet when you've watched it the first time round, you may or may not pick up on, and it was just completely by chance. But anyway, let's not talk about Tenet. It was just because I hadn't had you on for a while, Neil. And haven't had Claire, I know you're saying you haven't been to the cinema, but what have you been watching at home?
Okay, so I watched The Haunting of Bly Manor there at the weekend, which, do you know what? The first 5 episodes, I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I was really on edge. It was so Neil, basically, I'm not very good with scary films or horror in general.
Okay.
I'm
with you.
Psychological thriller kind of gal, like a murder mystery, but anything where there's a bit of say ghosts or horror, and I freak out. So the Haunting of Hill House, oh my goodness, that terrified me completely. So I thought this was going to be another one of them, and it was. The first 5 episodes were terrifying, and I was really on edge. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown, and then I don't know what happened to the rest of it, but there's an episode, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is an episode where it's in black and white, and it's just so repetitive that I was like, is this over? Please be over. Begging it to be over. Apart from that, so I'm sort of over Gordon Ramsay now, and I've moved on to Paul Hollywood, and I've started watching Bake Off.
I feel, the last time we had you on, there was a lot of love. There was a lot of many things for Gordon Ramsay, and you've just dropped him, Claire, and you've moved on to Paul Hollywood does have dreamy eyes. Even I would be like, and I mean, nothing in my life would give me more satisfaction than a handshake from Paul Hollywood. I just want to meet him somewhere and just shake his hand and just be like, yes. But Gordon's just kind of yesterday's man. It's all about Paul Hollywood now.
Now, I still obviously really appreciate Gordon Ramsay, and he will still probably be number one. He was my first love, and now I'm moving on to the second. And this is Paul Hollywood and Bake Off. Bake Off is flip. It's intense. I'm hooked.
I am a Bake Off fan, and do you know what it is? I mean, my lovely wife made the point. I think because the fact that they have been in this bubble, it means that you don't have to have social distancing. So it's just nice to be able to see groups of people and the Paul Hollywood handshake and all that stuff. And it's nice. It's a nice thing to do on a Tuesday evening. Come home and have an excuse for cake or chocolate this week because it was chocolate week. Neil, who's your favorite celebrity chef?
My favorite celebrity chef. I don't know if I have one.
Everybody has one.
I'm not a big cooking show person. It probably was Gordon Ramsay at one stage though.
Yeah.
Just because if you ever do need inventive swearing to add to your kind of rotation, Gordon's your guy.
I'll always be honest with poor old Jamie Oliver. He's a good old Essex lad, and you know what, Pucka. and all that stuff. Every Christmas, I watch the Jamie Oliver Christmas show to get ideas for watching my wife cook Christmas dinner. Like, yeah, you should do that.
Yeah, but then he got rid of turkey Twizzlers, didn't he?
This sounds like, Claire, like it's coming from a real honest place from you. It was just like you didn't think about that at all. It was like you just sounds like someone that's just like, I love turkey Twizzlers, and Jamie got rid of them.
I've actually never had them, but there was full total outrage, wasn't there, whenever he got rid of them?
I just remember my favorite bit of that whole documentary. This is going back. Yeah, at some point we will, listeners and viewers, talk about, Rose, a love story. But I do remember vividly that in that TV series or that documentary series that he made, wasn't it the bit where like the kids were getting their parents to smuggle in like fast food because they didn't like the food? I was like, come on, kids. Or was it Jamie crying just because they wouldn't eat his food? Oh well. Anyway. In a I don't know how I'm gonna do this gracefully other than saying, guys, Rose, a love story. What did you think? We had the producers on. They were talking about the film. It's just had its world premiere at the London Film Festival. It's directed by Jennifer Sheridan, and it stars Matthew Stocco and Sophie Rundle as Sam and Rose as a couple out in the woods. I don't know how much we really want to say. I know the producers were saying that the vampiric elements of this film have slipped out. That was something they did want to hold back, but it slipped out into the press and in a lot of the reviews. So I guess we can talk about that. But as I said, it's just had its world premiere. London Film Festival is all digital this year. There's screenings throughout. We've been sent a lovely screener. So I'm going to start with you, Claire. I know you were talking earlier on about liking psychological horror. So I'm not sure whether that feeds into, whether you are going to have positive thoughts or negative thoughts towards this film. But generally, before we get into the specifics, what did you think of the film?
I just want to thank you to start off with for not sending me to the cinema to see Saint Maud. And I will forever be grateful. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure, whenever I watched the trailer for it, I wasn't too sure what I was going to think of it, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. And I liked the sort of the vampire aspect of it, because I just finished a vampire book yesterday as well. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely. The acting was good.
I really liked it too. I was surprised by, I wasn't actually aware when I was sent the screener that it was a British horror. It looked very American from its production notes and the stills. And I was surprised, the couple that are front and center of this, the actor who plays Sam is also the film's writer. And the two leads are a couple in real life. And you get a genuine sense of a real dynamic between the two and a chemistry between the two that you can't fake. And there's a lot of things I want to come back to talk about, but I was surprised at how much I liked this and how impressed I was for a first time feature by Jennifer Sheridan. And the fact that it reminded me of stuff to an extent like Leave No Trace, which is a film I absolutely adore. I'm not saying it's similar, but there's elements of it in that film's DNA. But that's enough of me rambling. Neil, what about you?
Yeah, 3 for 3. I really enjoyed it. I went in cold to it, so I didn't go looking for any info or anything. I just hit the screener link and went. And we're talking about the vampiric bit. It's a real shame that stuff has leaked out. Because I think once you know where you're going down that road, it's almost going to be detrimental to it that people know that ultimately is the thing going in. Because when I started watching it and you see this isolated house and they're keeping lights on and there's ultraviolet lights around the place and there's a jar with leeches and you're really, it's like really unclear what the problem is. You're aware that she has some kind of issue, whether it's an allergy to light or natural light or whatever the thing is, and it's only in the kind of you get a sense of what's happening and it's only in the kind of final throes that vampiric bit really gets front and center attention. So it's a shame that people couldn't hold that away when talking about it. But I really liked it. And like you, I was impressed with the production of it and things like that, because that kind of forestscape that they live in reminds you of Leave No Trace and that kind of very distant woodland place. And it felt like it was set, to me watching it, it felt like it was set in some American backwood town, but was just inhabited by chance by all this like small English community. And I'm not really a horror person myself, because I'm a big wuss and I don't like being scared. But the thing that stood out for me was the relationship between the two. And that was really powerful, really well done. It's interesting to know that they actually are a couple. Because like you say, that's a very difficult thing to kind of generate. Like you could feel the love between the two of them. It felt very authentic. And do you know what was really nice too? It was an hour and a half, and it was a very small, like, it's very rare to see something. After I watched it, I went to IMDb. There are 5 people listed as characters in this, which is the two leads, the third party who comes into the house at one point, and then 2 other incidental characters. And that's it. It's a handful of people in this. And I kind of thought, for what you've done with what I presume to be a relatively small budget, you've made something really tight, really compact, really well told, and with really strong writing and characters and everything else. So yeah, I would, you can probably tell I'm a bigger fan of this than I am Bill and Ted, put it that way.
I think, I don't want to come back to Bill and Ted, but Bill and Ted for me was a film that just felt like it was pulled in too many ways and had too many narratives going on and never settled on itself. This is a film that knows right from the get-go what it wants to be, the story that it wants to tell. And whilst people will pick up on, because they don't mention, there's no reference, it's a bit like Shaun of the Dead. We're not mentioning the Z word. We're not mentioning zombies. They never mention vampires. They never mention anything like that. And it is telegraphed quite early on that that's the kind of strand that it's going down. That's the strand in its DNA. Neil mentioned leeches, and then we see the character of Sam kind of quite calmly sitting reading a book in his little room and just letting these leeches go at his leg. And then there's a scene in moments later with I don't even think Gordon Ramsay would serve that up. That I don't think Gordon. I don't even know Paul Hollywood would serve that up. But it was really effective. But what I love about, and it's the thing I like about all horror, is that whether it is a film that deals and has vampirism and elements of vampire in its DNA, it's not a film about vampirism. It's a film you could look at about terminal illness and sickness, and I think that's quite relevant. I think I said in the interview with the producers, I think, it's ironic that this film finished its production in March. Now that's like post and stuff, that's not filming. But, you think in March we went into lockdown, like Sam and Rose would be the social distancing champions of 2020. I think they would even give Jack Torrance possibly a run for his money for social distancing champions. But it's the fact that it's that sense you have these 2 people, and it is, I like the fact, I think it's called Rose on IMDb. It's been added in with the double barrel, like a love story. And it is very much, it's a horror film, but it is a love story. And I don't want to say it, but there's elements of Twilight in its DNA. And I have no problem with Twilight. I know there are people that do not like Twilight. I'm not one of them. I don't love it. I don't kind of want to watch it. I'm not like my wife who wants to watch it religiously. Well, actually, she's more Hunger Games than Twilight. But I don't have an issue with people liking Twilight. But there's definitely elements of that whether people will see that as a positive or not in its DNA, this love story. But front and center, it's a story about sickness and living with someone who is suffering from a terminal illness. And you look at it in the sense that Sam's character does not see the changes in Rose. He sees Rose. It's only when we have the introduction of the other character known as, I think Amber, she's called, that she kind of she straight away is like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so pale? You know, what is, there's something not right here? You know, and that's, you know, having been in a situation where I've lived with people who suffer from, like, very different, but like dementia and things like that, where you're in close contact and you don't see the changes, and somebody else comes in who maybe hasn't seen that person for months on end can instantly see the changes. Just, there was things like that I picked up that I'm rambling, I know, but I was really positive about this because it's a film that from the ground up, from every level, from its cinematography, which is stunning. I forget the name. I think it's Martina Knitter. I apologize if I'm getting that lady's name wrong, is doing the cinematography in this project. It's great. It knows exactly from every level. Everybody is on the same wavelength and knows what it wants to do, which is in stark comparison to a film like Neil that we've mentioned, Bill and Ted Face the Music. That's enough of me rambling. You know, guys, feel free to interject and see, you know, what else you want to talk about or praise within the film.
I found it really interesting actually with the character Sam. You know, whenever Amber actually comes into the film, and he actually becomes the moody one, where you would have thought it would have been the other way around, you know, with Rose's character having been like a vampire. You wouldn't expect her to be, I don't know, it was kind of like a paradox, is that the right word?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he took on this sort of moody, isolated, angry character, whereas you would have thought that maybe she would have been like that with change and another person in the mix. I thought that was quite interesting how they did that, and it worked really well.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, we see that change in dynamic, and it becomes the catalyst for change. And you know, that's a kind of tried and tested, you know, film element. Like another film I was thinking about when I was watching this, particularly the second time. I've watched this twice now because I enjoyed it. And it's, as you said, Neil, it's an hour and a half, so you can watch it again. It's not like 2.5 hours of bloodiness. But it reminded me a lot of It Comes at Night. And there's another film where we have a group of people that are in a routine, and they're in in that sense, it's a kind of dystopian future. Well, kind of, there's been a viral outbreak, bad stuff has happened. It sounds a bit like 2020, but let's not go there. And we see how the introduction of a different character can become the catalyst for change and how things ramp up. And as you say, Claire, you know, Rose, for everything that appears to be wrong with her, she seems to be at times in more control over the situation. It's actually Sam that there's a sense that he has become controlling of this. You know, everything is rationed. Like, he loses the rag over porridge, over the rations of porridge, and how that throws him off. But how, you know, the daily routine, like there's even a scene earlier on where he just wants her to eat. It's granted, as I said earlier on, I wouldn't necessarily want to eat what she's eating. That's all we'll say. But he wants to get her into this routine, because it's the idea of routine will keep her at max, in the best possible health, in the best condition for their relationship to flourish. And even, I think for me, the scene when I watched it the second time that works so well is the scene where they go on date night, and it's just a walk through the forest. And it comes back to that point where you can't fake that chemistry. And it actually, to the extent feels like the camera is rolled and they're just talking. It doesn't feel scripted. And they're talking, I think there's a line about fancy fruit, and they're kind of talking about this, that, and the other. And it's just this lovely scene where they're walking through the forest. And it's kind of a bad podcast because none of us are disagreeing. You know, none of us are saying, usually someone says, oh, I hated it, or I loved it. But Neil, come on, what else do you want to talk about? Come on, find something that you can criticize that we can all fall out on here.
I don't really know if there's anything that stands out as particularly negative about it.
I was being facetious.
I think I did wonder at one point during it if it's the type of thing you can do in a short.
Mm.
It had in some ways to be the feeling of a short film extended out.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that is going back on myself because I'm praising it for being 90 minutes. Because, you know, it's that old saying of, do you want to watch The Irishman? It's 3.5 hours. Do you want to watch this? It's an hour and a half and we can go to bed. Do you know, like, I'll take the hour and a half. But it did feel as well as something you could do in a shorter time scale. I also liked that the actual final reveal, even though you know where we're heading, you don't know when that full reveal is coming. So there was a scene where they are sitting peeling potatoes, and I was like, oh, here we go. She's going to nick herself with a potato peeler, and then it's going to all kick off. And it held there. And I thought, oh, you could, it's almost like it's so well done that it's almost teasing you into that kind of trigger pull moment. And I also really liked, there was just a little tiny almost epilogue at the end, which I'll not say anything about, but I really like that because it has the potential then to be there is the potential not for a sequel, but you know at that point that this story hasn't fully finished.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice kind of
really nice, and it doesn't mean it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, I'm just going to say.
It doesn't mean that I want Rose a love story too. It just means it's really nice to have that, and then cut. We know this is not done, and I'm content with that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's what I love in horror. It's a bloody great downbeat ending, and you know some of the great horrors are like that. You know, you think of stuff like you know, like I think is it Invasion of the Body Snatchers and stuff like that with Donald Sutherland turning around and squealing at people. You know, this fact that you've tried to, you know, bringing back into 2020 and the fact that we've had this pandemic and the fact that there's been a viral infection and people have tried to control this. Because while this is a film about, you know, vampirism at one element and terminal illness, it's also a film about trying to control and trying to contain what is essentially an infectious disease in some sense. And, you know, you see the inevitability that you can try your best. You can go out as far as you want into the woods, into the middle of nowhere in the summer that if I walked about, having recently been about at Ballyboley Forest to do a bit of filming at like 8 o'clock at night in the dark and had scared myself shitless. I would not want to be out in that forest in the middle of the night, but it's that sense of you can go as far as you want and get away from things, but the inevitability that you cannot control these things, and eventually you will lose control, and you see that in the situation in the way the finale resolves itself. And as Neil said, that little epilogue where you go, yeah, as they say, the technical term is shit's about to go, or the shit's about to hit the fan, I think is the technical term that most medical professionals would use. Was that something like Claire, for you? I mean, I know you were kind of talking about psychological horror and things like that, and I know Neil has said he's not a horror fan. It's only because you mentioned at the start of this, we were going to talk about Saint Maud, but unfortunately, I've been to see it. I've seen it in the cinema. I've seen it twice. Seen it in London last year. Seen it in the cinema when it came out. I really like that. That is a psychological horror, but at the same time, it's not a horror in the mode of, you held up earlier on a copy of Trick or Treat. It's not like that. It's not like something you would see from, you know, the Warrens facing off in the Conjuring films. It's not that type of horror. In the same way, this isn't that type of horror. Do you think like this is not going to be something? And I think, you know, well, God knows what is actually going to be in the cinemas in the months and year ahead. But this is not like a multiplex, an omniplex, or a movie house, or Odeon. You know, other cinemas are available. This is something I think would find its home at the QFT. It's a more indie left field horror. It's not mainstream horror. I think if you go to show this to horror audience, they will think it's maybe going to go down one way, but it's not. But in my long typical rambly way. You know, that downbeat ending, is that something that you particularly like? Are you a fan of that in horror? Because in the psychological strand of horror genre, that is quite common. You know, we think of stuff like Hereditary. That is a downbeat ending, if ever there is one. But let's not go there. But is that something you particularly like in this film, and something do you want in your film? Do you want everything to be resolved nice and neatly, to know that the world is safe again, and that everything, as they say, everything will be all right in the end? Whilst in this, as I said, the technical term is the shit has hit the fan.
I actually liked the ending. I liked how it was extremely sudden. Like Neil was saying, you know, there was quite a lot of teasing elements and there was a lot of build up, and you didn't, for that, you actually didn't expect it to be so sudden. Then it just came out of nowhere, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, yes. And I actually, do you know what, I wanted it to be a little bit gorier. If they could have done that, like, I think that's my only sort of problem with it. They could have gone a wee bit gorier with it, and that's coming from someone that doesn't really like horror that much and doesn't really like gore. But then it's quite nice how they didn't go totally hardcore with it, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's a scene. There's a scene with a bear trap. There's a scene with a bear trap.
Oh, flip! That was hard to watch. Yeah.
That isn't gory, and it's that wonderful thing with, you know, your cinematography and your editing. You see in your mind's eye, you see in your head what you think you see, but in the reality, you haven't seen that much. You've literally seen a blood-soaked pair of jeans. I'm trying to be as unspoilerific as I can, but it's that, like, watching it both times, I did find myself, I'm not good with that type of stuff anyway, but I find myself flinching each time, and it's effective. But yet, you know, I'm someone who loves The Boys on Amazon Prime. I mean, there is something that is just the definition of over-the-top violence. I'm kind of desensitized to that. That doesn't have an effect on me. Depends how it's shot, and depends, you know, how it's been handled on screen with the editing and with the soundtrack. That all makes a kind of sense of creating the tone and atmosphere. But the fact that I would kind of disagree, that I'm glad it didn't go ultra-violent in a way. Mm-hmm. But yet, when it wants to be, it's not that it doesn't have teeth, but it knows exactly how to force a reaction out of us as a viewer. And that sequence with the bear trap, despite showing you very little, it's a bit like it's 127 Hours, the Danny Boyle film, where there's that the iconic scenes where he's kind of cutting off something you really don't want to be cutting off. And again, you don't see anything. It's all, you know, in your head, and how the shot's set up and how it's been framed and edited. And like, Neil, I know you're saying you're a wuss, but did you find that tough? The fact that even though we don't see very much?
I think with things like that, I think they are more horrific because there is, no matter how slim, there is a chance that could actually happen. So when you're dealing with The Boys, that is pure comic book violence and gore and splatter and all that stuff. I'm not saying if I go into the woods, I'm going to walk through a bear trap, but there is the potential for an injury like that or something similar to happen. And when something is more realistic, it almost becomes more scary.
Yeah.
So 127 hours, I could have an accident on a hike like that, and something like that happen. Do you know, like, but it's why things like Final Destination became cartoonish. Because the first time they made that film, the incidents were not all, but some of them were kind of more realistic, if that makes sense. And then by the end of it, you literally have bits of fenced wire flying across and going through people like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. And it ended up taking away from what the film, the shock factor of it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more shocking than something that could potentially be a reality.
Yeah, it's that sense that, you know, the film's built around the kills. It's moving on to the next over elaborate kill. That's not the type of film we're watching here. But, you know, do you think, I don't know, I haven't seen the trailer Claire, but you have. I mean, does the trailer in any way mislead you? And I'm thinking back to the film I mentioned earlier on, It Comes at Night. I sat in, I think it was the Omniplex, and watching that film with an audience who actively hated it, who actively wanted to, at the end of the film, collectively, en masse, got up out of their seat and couldn't wait to get out because they were that annoyed, because they thought it was going to be a film like The Conjuring. It was going to be that type of film. And when you look at the trailer, that's what it was sold as. You think that there is a monster, an actual physical monster outside lurking about. It's when it gets the sense that the thing that it comes at night is paranoia and our mistrust of our fellow man. That's the mistrust of our fellow men and women, just to be PC. And that's what I loved that in that film, but I never saw the trailer. I went in blind, like Neil said about this, and adored it. But people who clearly went there thinking it was a trailer, having watched the trailer, does the film sell itself as much more of an outright horror? Because we know that marketing men and women will sell their souls to get you to go get your bum on the seat at the cinema, or rent or premium rent, whatever it is these days, whatever the kids are doing these days. So having watched the trailer, does that trailer sell you the film you watched?
Do you know what? With the trailer, I felt it focused on a lot of isolation. So the isolation between the couple being out in the woods, it focused on them, their routine. Now, there was a few shots in the trailer of, the leeches. And it really made me wonder, because I was like, what is that? Now, I don't remember the trailer focusing too badly on the vampire element, but it lured you into something unsettling, like something unsettling was happening between these two, but you weren't quite sure what it was. Now, maybe someone smarter would have seen the leeches and would have thought vampires. I saw the leeches and I was like, flip, what the hell would you be doing with leeches? I was like, what? But, someone else could have caught on to that straight away and been like, oh, vampires. To me, I wasn't too quick on that one.
Did you not, Claire, when you were watching it, by the sounds of it, maybe go like a typical Belfast granny and go, something's not right about her? Something's not right about her. Something's not right about him. I don't know. Who keeps leeches? Who keeps leeches in the house? I don't know. I mean,
I didn't quite know that.
That's okay. But do you think, Neil, and we are going to wrap this up, do you think it benefited you from just going into this? Basically, being said, Neil, here, we're going to get you on the pod, watch this, and you didn't see it before, you didn't look at anything, you didn't research it in IMDb, you didn't look at trailers, anything. Do you think it just benefited you? Because I love doing that. That's one thing I love about a film festival, when you literally just go, like, at the height, at a normal London film festival, or even the Belfast Film Festival, you just go, right, boom, I'll go see that. There's like 3-4 films, I'll go see 3 films in a row.
Yeah.
Boom. And, it ends up the film that maybe you were excited about is the one that let you down. And the one that you were like, right, well, I've got 2 hours to kill. I'll go see that. I don't know who it is. It's, this kind of love story from Zimbabwe. I don't know. And that ends up being the film that you absolutely adore. It's that, I mean, that's the joy of a festival. That is, I am missing that, and watching stuff remotely, it's not the same. It isn't the same. I know the film festival has been screened throughout the UK, which is a great idea, but it's not the same, and it's weird. But I didn't know anything about this. We were sent the details through from the press people, and got offered the interview with Sara and April, who I thought were great to chat with, and watch the film and thoroughly enjoyed it. So, whilst Claire researched beforehand, do you think you benefited, Neil, from just going, right, boom, press play?
Yeah, I think in some ways, because, like I said about the vampire aspect of it, that was something that kind of revealed itself, and particularly as somebody who isn't a massive horror person, so I'm not a massive I don't have an extensive knowledge of vampire films and the kind of signs to look for. Like Claire was saying, like leech jars. I'm like, I don't really know. Like, are you trying to suck something out of somebody? I don't know. What is this? That sort of didn't really ring any bells with me. And it was, yeah, it was nice to go and see something kind of cold. I think
no pun intended, considering it's out in the middle of the wilderness.
I think when you have even a film festival program, you still in the little blurb you still get little things that will maybe pique your interest, depending on what you're into. So for me, I love those things that kind of play around with religion and faith and things like that. I enjoy those types of films.
Zip mod.
So
Zip mod. Sorry, I've got real bad cough. Real bad cough. Zip mod. Zip mod. Sorry.
And those will always kind of attract me, even if it is just within a title of something. But kind of just you sent me a link, and I was like, okay, let's go, boom, and started into it. And I think in this case, and particularly with the way in which things are revealed throughout the story, and sadly, as was said, the way it has been reported the film is about, the less you know, the better.
I know we're
listening to us the whole way through. Yeah. Sadly, you probably know it awful.
I know we're saying that, and we're kind of going like, it's better if you don't know, and then people will go like, hang on. Someone will send me a strongly worded email going, you bitch about people talking about things, but yet you've talked about it halfway through. It's like, well, you know what? I'm just not a very good critic. That's the way I'm going to go with it. I really, really like it. I think just because you say something has vampiric quality, or there's a vampiric quality to, or elements to the film's DNA, I don't think sells it as a vampire film. I think there's that, because that's the beautiful thing about it's like the zombie genre. You can unpack and take different things from it. From the vampire genre, you can take different things from it. And I keep coming back to it. If you're going into this expecting it to be a vampire film, it's not. It's really not that type of film. And if that's what you've picked up from the press, and if that's what you've picked up from another review or from listening to us, that's not the film that the writer and the director has tried to make. It just happens to have, as I say, elements of vampire genre in its DNA. And I didn't have an element. I do see this as a film about isolation. I do see this as a film about a couple living with terminal illness. And I did find, I think it's because of the world we are in now. When the filmmakers made this, they didn't know we were going to have a pandemic. They didn't know we were going to have to do a lockdown, the circuit breaker that's just about to hit us here in Northern Ireland. And those then bring in different elements of irony when you're watching it. It's like going, oh God, isolation, tell me about it. I know all about it this year. It's just, I think it's a really good film. I'm hoping, we're talking about this now in October 2020. I'm hoping it's not going to be a long time, whether it's VOD or whether it's on a streaming service or whether it is in a cinema. Yes, listeners, yes, viewers, they're still there. They are still there. Some of them are closed now for a while. Some of them are closed during the week and only at weekends. But if I would definitely recommend to someone, and that, I suppose that's the point where we will bring things to a close. I would definitely recommend someone listening to us or watching us to seek this out and watch it, whether you're a hardened horror fan or whether you just want something that little bit different. I really liked this. I really did, and I was surprised at how much I liked it. And Claire, would you? I know you haven't. You're the person. Sorry to bring it up again. You haven't been to cinema. I know. But would you recommend someone? If this was out in the cinema, would you say this is the thing that Banterflix is all about? Is the film worth the price of a cinema ticket, off the admission for you? Had you watched this at the cinema, or even got it through Love Film back in the day, would you have found that that's your money's? You got your money's worth?
Okay, yes, I think definitely. And I'm hoping, like, by the time it is actually released, that it doesn't feel as relatable to some people, like that we're not still in that form of isolation ourselves, you know.
Fingers crossed, fingers everything crossed. Hopefully we're going to be out of this soon. It's all right though. We'll have a normal Christmas. We'll have a normal Christmas. It'll all be good. Neil, what about you? The big question we always ask with Bandflix: would this film be worth the price of your cinema admission? Would it be worth the price of your rental on VOD, your purchase in VOD, or your monthly streaming fee watching this? Whatever it's gonna be watching film in the months and years ahead. Do you think this is worth giving a watch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say that as somebody who normally wouldn't be drawn to this type of thing. I'm actually really glad that I got to see it, because it is something that I would recommend, whatever format it turns up in down the road. I think it definitely is worth seeking out wherever it lands. I really enjoyed it, and as I say, it's not my normal go-to, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Perfect. So I think on that note, we've talked about quite a bit this evening. I think there's a bit of everything. We've talked a bit about Love Film. We've talked a bit about Tenet, Wild Stallions. And of course, we've talked about Rose: A Love Story. And, thanks again to Sara and April for giving us their time earlier on. So that's pretty much us for this week. So all that's left for me to do now is thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Neil.
Cheers, guys. Good to hang out again.
So that's all we've time for in this week's episode of We Need to Talk About Movies. Thanks to our contributors for taking part. I hope you enjoyed the episode too. If you did, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasting fix. And if you really liked it, leave us a lovely review, because that helps bring new people to this podcast. And if this was your first time checking out We Need to Talk About Movies, you can find our complete back catalogue on our website. We'll be back next week with another episode of We Need to Talk About Movies. But for now, until then, goodbye.
This has been We Need to Talk About Movies. Thanks for listening. For more information, visit banterflix.com. See you next time.